Garrison twins. They were sentenced to prison under mandatory minimum sentences for drug charges, convictions. Lawrence, Lamont Garrison join me now live in studio. Lawrence, Lamont, I know you're still maintaining you were innocent.
Right, correct.
And how much time did you do?
I did 11 years, 9 months.
Almost all of the sentence?
Well, no. My sentence was reduced by 36 months. I didn't do the whole 188 months because of the first wave of reduction, which made retroactivity.
Lamont, how much time you doing?
13 years. On 235 months was 19 years, 19 and a half years.
Yeah, and you did additional time because you took to the stand. You took the stand over it.
Obstruction of justice enhancement because they said the jury did not believe me when I told my side of the story. So I got a sentence enhancement under the sentencing guidelines.
Right. How have you adjusted since coming home? How are you doing?
I'm doing well. We're doing well.
Mm-hmm.
It took some time. Things moved kind of fast when I first came home, but having a mother that's active, and she's been active for 21 years now. It made things a lot easier, made the transition easy.
Your mother's one of the toughest, dedicated, most humble individuals I've ever met.
Yes, mommy activist. She was fighting. She got from the day she got herself off the courtroom floor. She fought. She fought hard.
Lamont, how do you do all that prison time knowing you're innocent?
Well, just knowing that you're preparing for your comeback. I had numbers and not letters. I didn't have a life sentence, but I had numbers, 235 months. So I knew one day I was going to return. So you got to prepare for that. That's something you got to prepare for. There's nothing else to do in prison but prepare. So.
You had your degrees, okay?
Mm-hmm. Correct.
Were you able to use them in prison?
Oh, no, most definitely. I was head law clerk, I think, in Manchester, Kentucky for 6 years.
Okay.
I learned the law library at the Department of Justice, interned in there.
Right.
So we had my degree, political science, was pre-law pretty much.
Right.
And so it was second nature, really.
Right. Mm-hmm. You were able to help the other inmates.
Yes.
That sort of thing. Okay. You're out now, you have your degrees, but
right.
you've also got those felony convictions.
Correct.
So are you at the back of the line starting out? Are you in the middle of the line, of college-educated people? What, having that felony conviction, what does that do, to what you're trying to do in terms of putting your lives back together?
I can say it may hamper some. It hasn't hampered us.
Right.
It's always in the back of your mind. Yeah, you have a degree, but you also have to get a job and different things. So you make your own. You write your own ticket now. I'm not putting myself in a situation where I have to ask somebody for a job. I make my own money.
I'm not sentencing. Feeling any pity here, self-pity, or wallowing in that oh poor me, or that sort of thing.
No, we've never asked for a handout from anybody.
Yeah, you know what I've said to you guys time and time again. I've never seen two guys smile as much and laugh. What are you laughing about? I'd be pissed.
I mean, it's our story. I mean, we have no reason to walk around with frowns on our face.
Right.
Yeah, it was an experience. Yeah. I learned a lot, a great deal. Now that's something that I'm not going to deny. I learned a lot. So what I learned, I used even in free society.
What did you learn? What did you learn?
Well, everything is not as it seems. We thought our system of jurisprudence was fair, but it's not. It's racially biased. In that Washington, in the New York Times article was saying, well, you said 91% of the 1,000 were African American. That's amazing.
Right.
But that's something we saw when we went to penitentiaries and places like that. In our travels, mostly were black.
So you saw other cases like yours, or people who were convicted and had sold crack cocaine,
but for little or nothing and got life sentences.
Right.
It was just ridiculous. So when you think you got it bad, it's somebody that got it worse.
Always.
Believe that. Always.
Gotcha. So what do you think of this bipartisan criminal justice reform bill? When you hear that 1,000 cases, sentences have been reduced, 91% of those African American.
Well, it's we all know it's a Band-Aid on a gaping wound. More can be done. More has to be done. Thank God my mom's focusing on reentry, returning citizens. It's been glamorized now. Kim Kardashian and these people, but she's the predecessor to that. She made those moves popular on CNN, on this station, and other channels. So, when you take up a banner like that, remember you standing on someone's shoulders.
I'm glad you said that. And because you're identical twin, you weren't able to serve your time together. You'll be in separate prisons. That's the rule, or is that a law? So you went how long before you could see and touch one another?
The whole sentence? Did 13 years, yeah. And then when he went home, I was able to talk to him on the phone.
Right.
But we weren't able to visit or anything like that. So it was 13 years before I was able to see him.
Right.
Yeah.
Good seeing you guys again. Keep smiling.
Okay, so y'all just heard that clip right there, and the way that I found out about this was because I was going through my followers, and I landed on Dr. Tia Hassan Johnson, and shout out to him because he posts a lot of real good information, especially pertaining to black males, because that's what he specializes in his studies. And when I saw the state in which it was talking about, I said I definitely have to speak on this, and it was talking about the state of Maryland. Now, what you heard from was not so much about what I'm going to discuss. It's a branch of it, but it does have something to do with it. Now, the one thing that stuck out to me about this, about the audio you just heard, was the last bit of part of it where these two guys who were talking, who were being interviewed, they are twin brothers. I was like, they kind of look alike. They look related, and it turns out they indeed were twins, so my eyes weren't deceiving me. Was the fact that while they were both locked up, they could not visit each other. Even when one of them was out of jail for his sentence, he could not visit his brother who was still locked up, serving out the rest of his sentence. Like, that to me was crazy. Even though you would think he would have the right to do so, he couldn't. So basically, they could not talk to each other face to face or embrace each other until he was released, till the other brother was released. But the reason why I played that video for you and I'm doing this video is because I found out something very interesting about the state of Maryland, which, of course, many of you know that's where I live at. And it says, Maryland leads the nation in incarcerating young black men. Let me say that again. Maryland leads the nation in incarcerating young black men. And this was posted on January 21st, 2020. I can't help but think that most of those black men come from these two places, PG County and Baltimore, because those are the two places in Maryland that has a huge population of black people. So I'm thinking it's between those two places right there. But I'm going to go ahead and get into this article coming from WUSA 9. Currently, the state of Maryland imprisons 3,000 people over the age of 50 and nearly 1,000 individuals who are 60 and over. More of Maryland's prison population is black than in any other state in the nation. The state of Maryland has the highest incarceration rate in the nation of black men aged 18 to 24, while the second highest incarceration rate for young black men is in Mississippi. No disrespect to Mississippi Senate Judicial Proceedings Committee Chairman William C. Smith Jr. said, but this should be something that raises everyone's eyebrows throughout the entire General Assembly, and especially in this committee. Many men ages 18 to 24 who were sentenced to extreme prison sentences still remain in prison even decades later. Currently, the state of Maryland imprisons 3,000 people over age 50 and nearly 1,000 individuals who are over the age of 60. According to the Justice Policy, and I'm willing to bet that those people who went in who are now 50 and over and 60 or over probably went in way before those ages now. According to the Justice Policy Institute, more than 70% of all people in Maryland's prisons double the national average, and almost 80% of the people serving at least 10 years are black. And see, what they'll do is they will go with those statistics, and that's why you have these palm-colored folks out here peddling that 13% of the nation committing all of this crime. But when you really break down what quote-unquote crime they committed, they should not even, most of them shouldn't be in jail for even longer than a year for the crimes they committed, but they put them in there for dozens of years behind bars for something that would be considered, a non-violent crime. Yet and still, you'll have these murderers running free and these rapists running free, those who should get many, many years behind bars. Yet you have someone in jail for a dime bag of weed that they weren't even distributing, that they were smoking their own stash. Even while some places have legalized marijuana usage. But we know how that goes. The latest data from the Department of Justice, however, shows that the proportion of the Maryland prison population that is black is more than double the national average of 32%. Then it shows a chart here that you can't see where it says the highest rates in the country easily overshadow the next closest state, Mississippi, South Carolina, and Georgia. But you can't see that. But I'll probably post the link to the article and you can read it yourself. Maryland is the worst state in the nation when it comes to incarcerating people who are black, Justice Policy Institute Executive Director Mark Schindler said. These disparities are most pronounced for people in serving the longest sentences who were sentenced as emerging adults, 18 to 24 years of age, which is what I was saying. How many of the people who are in their 50 to 60 years of age and they're still in there now probably went in when they were 18 to 24. This is a racial justice crisis that Maryland leaders must tackle head on. By keeping the incarcerated adults in prison, it is continuing to cost the state hundreds of millions of dollars, but they don't care. Because it's the money is not coming out of the prison's pockets, it's coming out of our pockets. If it was coming out of their pockets, they wouldn't be doing this. Back in 2017, Maryland was at the forefront of the national criminal justice reform conversation when the state reported an unprecedented 10% decrease in its overall prison population. While policymakers declare victory, the state of Maryland has been plagued with the high rates of racial disparities among emerging adults serving long prison terms. We must focus on the emerging adult population for an effective, fair, and unbiased criminal justice system, Delegate Eric L. Barron said. It's past time for Maryland to join other jurisdictions exploring innovative reforms related to emerging adults. Now, I noticed me reading this article, they did not mention where most of these arrests come from, but that's okay because, like I said, I'm gonna stand on my first point. I believe many of the arrests for black men in the state of Maryland come from two places, and that is PG County and Baltimore. Reason I say PG County is because PG County is the most black populated area in Maryland, in the state of Maryland. And in Baltimore, well, not the county, but more the city, like where the hood is. Think of The Wire. That's the black populated area in the state of Maryland. I can only see it coming down to those two. Everywhere else is like in the mountains or in the suburbs somewhere else. The only suburbs I can think of where black people populate at is probably Upper Marlboro and parts of Bowie. And that's it. But everywhere else, that's mostly palm color dominated, especially once you start heading up towards the mountains and like Annapolis and all stuff like that. But I'm willing to bet that's where most of the arrests are coming from for this state. But this is very interesting to find out. Like I said, sometimes like I have a shock, just like many of you. When y'all find out something that I bring to you about your state, you're like, I didn't know this happening. I brought this to myself, or this just kind of fell into my lap, and I didn't even know this was going on, but I'm glad that I know now. And for those of you who live in Mississippi, probably didn't know y'all had the second highest rate. But then Mississippi, for many, probably would say does not surprise you. But because Maryland seems like that kind of state where it kind of is like on that borderline, you just never kind of know. But it is what it is. But I'm glad that I was able to find this out, and I'm glad I was able to bring this to you. But I would like to know from you, if you do live in the state of Maryland, were you aware of this before I brought this information to you? Or does it surprise you in the least bit, or does it kind of come as a shock to you when you find this out? Because nobody likes their state to be at the forefront of something like this. I know I don't. But in this establishment that we live in, you know, this umbrella that we're under, why should it shock anyone? It should shock absolutely no one. But like I said, they use stuff like this to try to say or use that 13%, 50% this, 50% that. They love to use that. And don't forget the new 92 one for the interracial crime allegedly that we do against palm-colored people all the time. But, you know, that's nothing but a lie as well. But y'all let me know what y'all think about this down in the comments. Like, share, subscribe. Make sure you follow me on Twitter if you haven't done so already. Have your notifications turned on, and I will talk to you in the next one.